So, last night, or I guess earlier this morning, we got official confirmation from I Seriously that the next banners for the Worldwide Celebration, Vegito and Zamasu here, if I zoom out, Vegito and Zamasu, are indeed going to be a dual Dokkan festival instead of last year's format, which was Dokkan X Carnival. So, I mean, presumably, based on what I've seen, just as a general consensus, a lot of people actually do like this change. Most people I've seen are preferring the dual Dokkan Festival change, but no, I wanted to go ahead and just make a video about this because I personally feel that I want to argue that I actually don't like this change. And I actually would say this change is also not good for free-to-play players in terms of maximizing their stone usage. Now, we'll go ahead and just talk about it real quick. So, obviously, again, these guys are both going to be Dokkan festivals. Last year, the format was Cooler and Goku, which Goku is the Carnival and Cooler was the only Dokkan festival. Then in part 2, we also received another Dokkan Festival X Carnival format with the Super Saiyan Goku and Vegeta and the Carnival LR Metal Cooler. In my opinion, that spread the hype between both of the parts and it kept things a little more lively overall. Maybe it just a Dokkan Carnival format fit that celebration better than it would this year, but I don't know, I feel like they should have done it anyways. Now again, I did make a point. Personally, I'm not a fan. We'll take a look at some of the replies here, and it did ask people to this is right here is a poll. I asked people to vote on a poll and let me know why, and then give me some extra responses here. But I think a lot of people are saying stuff like this, and I think there is a point to it. This is much better for regular players. You could safely use stones now. The DFX Carnival format is only good for content creators because people are saying, okay, instead of having to like not know what part 2 is and risk summoning on part 1, we can have both the Dokkan Fest banners in part 1, so we're not scared of summoning, because as free-to-play players or normal players, we're going to be skipping Carnival banners anyways because the lineups aren't really that great. And I would say, yeah, the Carnival banners lineup definitely aren't as good as what Dokkan Festival banners lineups usually are, just as a general thing that's happening. But I actually do disagree, and I think that's something, let me tell you why. There's something that people actually don't really think about or remember, because it's like this is the first time that happened was last year. But I'll describe here. I actually think that's untrue, where it's better for free-to-play players. Essentially, with the second Dokkan Fest banner, let's say if that was in part 2, that meant that you could have used all the part 1 stones for the first Dokkan Fest banner 3+1, and then you also have part 2 stones to use towards the second banner. But now, because both banners are in part 1, there's no access to any part 2 stones. You can only use part 1 stones for both dual Dokkan festivals in terms of the 3+1 discounts. Whilst before, you could have access to the part 2 stones as well, albeit only for the second banner, but you have access to 2 different parts of stones. And in general, last year part 2 could roll around, the banners will still be up, but the discounts would be gone. So it's like, okay, if you wanted to use the stones on the part 1 banner after all that you get in part 2, it'd be the same this year and last year, except that now you have the part 2 stones that will give you 3+1s on the actual part 2 banner. You could also save part 1 stones for part 2, right? So we learned that the part 2 Dokkan Fest was Super Saiyan Goku and Vegeta, and Metal Cooler was the Carnival before the part 1 discounts ended. So as a free-to-play player, if you really wanted to maximize your stones, you could still summon, right? You could do some summons, right? But let's say you use about half your stones, and for Vegito Blue or something, like, yeah, Vegito Blue, the Dokkan Fest in part 1, I'm gonna use like half my stones of Vegito Blue. Then I'm gonna wait and see what the part 2 Dokkan Festival is. And then let's say part 2 Dokkan Festival was Rose Goku Black. Then you're like, oh my goodness, I am a huge Rose Goku Black fan. I love Rose more than Vegito, although I like Vegito as well. I'm gonna go ahead and save the rest of my part 1 stones and use my part 2 stones for Rose. Whilst if you're just a Vegito fan, you're like, I don't really care too much about Rose. I'm gonna use the rest of my stones and continue to summon for Vegito Blue for part 1. And it would have been the same, except that in part 1, now you have to use it for both Vegito's banner and Zamasu's banner if you're a fan of both of them. Now, if you're only summoning for Vegito, I guess it doesn't really make a difference, right? But there's people who will want Vegito and Zamasu. Both banners are going to be good, right? Whilst it being split gives you more workarounds with your stones, and in total you get more access to more stones in general. So like you could realistically just shove all the part 1 stones to one banner, and then during part 2 you could use the rest there. But that's just my point about that. We also have the Tanabata, like thank you tickets this year. I keep saying Tanabata, but the thank you tickets, the rainbow ones, that you could also just use on the part 2 banners, right? Which is pretty good too. So you could have just summoned a part 1 without worrying as much, right? Though you could probably make the same argument if part 2 is dual Carnival, right? You could use those tickets to the Carnival banner, but that's just my point about it. But again, I understand because hey, people aren't gonna want to wait to summon, right? And I think that's perfectly fair. I mean, if you've been waiting for a Vegito for like 1,000 days, like you're not gonna wait to summon just in case part 2 might have a Dokkan Fest character you like, right? You're gonna want to summon instantly. So that is a fair point. But just thoroughly speaking, from a free-to-play player who wants to make their stones count as much as possible, then the Dokkan Carnival format actually was better. Now right here, I also think that it just makes Carnival banners just feel a little more pointless, because it's like, okay, they introduced Carnival banners because they wanted to do this new format where the hype was spread between both parts. But now Carnival banners are just going to both be in part 2. And it just makes Carnival banners feel a lot worse, right? Because you have to split the banners. Because in the past, it was just one yellow coin banner. But then they split the Carnival banners into 2 banners because they wanted to spread the hype. Right, balance that out with the Dokkan Fest Carnival, Dokkan Fest Carnival. But now, since it's just going to be the same format that we had with Yellow Coin LRs, now there's just an extra banner for no reason, because people wanted the Dokkan Fest Part 1. And again, I don't think that there's necessarily a wrong, like, choice to this. Maybe this is actually end up being better. Maybe we'll have to wait and see, right? We can't see, like, because what if the Part 2 LRs are just going to be, you know, I know a lot of people, some people like this, a lot of people don't like this idea, but a lot of people were thinking, what if it's double Trunks in part 2, where it's Z Trunks and Sword Hope Trunks? Like, a lot of people wouldn't like if Zamasu didn't get a Dokkan Fest over Trunks, right? And a lot of people would feel better, just as a general consensus, if they're both carnivals, and we're like, okay, we could just skip that, right? So that's just my thought process on that. Again, it seems like a lot of people do like this, but we'll go ahead and take a look at the replies here. I think we do have a good amount of responses. Hopefully, right? We'll see. Do y'all like the change to dual Dokkan Fest from Dokkan Carnival this year? Again, from what I'm seeing, over half people do like the dual Dokkan Fest. The 337 votes right now. But right now, Dokkan Fest Carnival is actually not that far away. 44.5%. Does look to be pretty even. How many responses do I have to this? I have 15 responses. So we'll read through these. If I need to, we'll read through a couple of these too. But let's take a look here. So Dokkan Fest Carnival maintains the hype better throughout the celebration, whereas Dokkan Fest are more hype for part 1, but the hype throughout the celebration went slower. You prefer Dokkan Carnival. Again, yeah, because I know people are going to be happy right now. But then part 2 is going to roll around, and it's going to be like Carnival Trunks, and then people are going to be like, wow, Worldwide Celebration is so boring. Oh my god, this Worldwide Part 2 sucks, blah, blah, right? You know, that sounds kind of mean, but that's kind of what's going to happen. While, you know, if it was a Dokkan Fest, there would likely be an equally hype character as a Dokkan Fest, or at least, like, relatively. With Vegito, if Vegito was a Dokkan Fest, right, it wouldn't really, like, I don't think anything would compare to Vegito in this scenario, so it's kind of interesting, but, like, it would be a similarly, like, hype character as a Dokkan Fest in both parts, so that would keep the hype up, right? At least that's because that's the point for the Dokkan Carnival format. Dual DFE is better for leader skills, but DFE Carnival is better for hype and not making the banner format worthless. More split to make it more unique. Yeah, I do like it too, because it's just like it's a lot similar to the anniversary, and obviously the anniversary format's good, but it's nice to kind of have a switch up, right? You don't like it. Okay, again, this is okay. This is someone who does like the Dokkan Carnival. Keeping a Dokkan Fest in each part would keep the hype going. Just don't summon a save for Part 2 Dokkan Fest, let you know how all 4 banners look right away, as Part 2 is basically a mirror. Are the people saying dual DFE wanted the game to go to shambles? Part 2 is going to be worse anyways, might as well make them carnivals. This is not necessarily true. You could say Part 2 units could be worse, quote unquote, but they've been a lot more expansive on how they design characters. I would not like say for sure that, like, you know, the Dokkan, if it was like Dokkan Carnival, that Part 2 would always be worse than Part 1. At the very least, they'd be on a similar level of power, right? Last year, though, they were worse, right? So this is like a fair statement to make based on what we have experienced. Dual DFE, okay, I want to see more points for dual DFE, because I've actually seen a lot of Dokkan Fest Carnival points so far. Because of me. Generates more hype and traffic towards the game, as generally both units have amazing utility and leader skills compared to Carnivalars, which do also help revive dead teams with awful banners. The thing about DFE Carnivals is that is annoying is that is both less hype. One can have that is annoying is both less hype though. Okay, I'm not sure. And the global mindset, I just don't want to get the other half of exciting news. I'm like, am I reading this wrong? Am I like crazy? Part 2 doesn't need Dokkan Fest to be exciting, just broken units. I mean, I guess you could say that, right? But yeah, that's the thing there. You never seen a Carnival banner being a must summon against up Kai Goku's the Dual Dokkan Festival. It felt important and had a purpose. I would say in general the Carnival banner change is good, but the new coin was stupid. Just wait till Part 2 because they switch extreme and super units. You much preferred Carnival Dokkan Fest as somebody worldwide special. Yeah, and DDF are better for most players, but Carnival have more value as time goes on to your split. As long as you get every new unit, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I mean, if you summon all 4 units, it really doesn't actually matter. I guess technically that is correct. If you get all 4 units, it doesn't matter. So who cares? Yeah, amazing, right? Momentum of the celebration DFE Carnival. I want people to be excited for Part 2. And like 8th anniversary, people were not excited. So like if it's something like that, like if 8th anniversary is Dokkan Fest like Carnival, like that Part 2 would not have happened. And I think overall the celebration would have been, you know, made people happier probably. Then what happened with Part 2, where Part 2 is like, oh yeah, we're bringing out Kai Goku and Z Gohan were really cool. But a lot of people did not like Kai Goku and Z Gohan. So, like in terms of like the concept, which is, it's kind of fair. Let me see 1 or 2 comments here. Part 2 Dokkan Fest. I've seen some people there's not going to be Part 3. I've seen a lot of people say Dokkan Fests in Part 2. And I'm going to say I do not think that's going to happen, but it would be interesting if that happens. I would say likely not going to happen, because I anticipate this is where Kai Goku and the Dragon Ball Z Gohan I just talked about should return on JP. Global, maybe. I guess one thing about this is that since the Carnival banners are in Part 2 now, maybe it's like, okay, Global is like has more room to like, okay, yeah, we feel comfortable returning Kai Goku and Kid Gohan. You know, it's been about like a month and a half. It's like there's no way, there's no other place for them to return, right? So Dokkan Fest better leader skills, coins way better to obtain, usually better, make more money. It's nearly possible. But what if they do 4 DFE? Some people are saying that. I'm gonna end on that. I mean, if they really want to do that, yeah, but then it just further pushes in the fact that it's like, okay, well, carnivals are kind of a failure, and I don't know if they would like backtrack on that. Like they're like, yeah, we're gonna do a huge maintenance carnival format. We're taking that away. It's gone forever or something. I don't know, but whatever. At the end of the day, if most of y'all are happy with the dual Dokkan Fest, I think that's the most important thing. Based on this poll, it is pretty split though. So I would say it looks like more people are in favor for it, but there's a good like chunk of people still, 44% based on this poll. I mean, only 443 votes. You can't capture the entire like player base with that, but based on the sample size here, it seems like a lot of people still would prefer Dokkan Fest Carnival. But let me know what you guys would prefer, which one you like better, and I will catch you in the next video. Peace out.